This week on Take It Outside.
Comes running up out of breath and he goes, "Did you get him?" My grandpa goes, "Well, if the earth's round like they say it is, I'll be back in an hour and a half." He was home. It was just mayhem. That blood landing in my mouth. There's birds all over. And he's like, "Reload, kill him more as fast as you can." It's the boat that won't sputter. It's the only boat with a stutter. It's a Starfire 150. One of the guys threw out the name, we had Buck, Cooper and whatever else, and someone came up with Rut Daniels, and it was just like, that's the one.
This podcast was brought to you by Outsider. Check us out at www.outsider.com. Outsider is an outdoor lifestyle brand owned and operated by me, retired Navy SEAL Sam Mackey, and my dear friend and former NFL quarterback Jay Cutler. At Outsider, we encourage everyone to get outside and enjoy all that life has to offer. Head over to outsider.com to check out our unique patent-pending drinkware. Outsider's drinkware can be customized with your personal or business logo. Go to outsider.com, upload your logo, and we will send you visual proofs and great wholesale pricing. And don't forget, get outside and enjoy all that life has to offer. Welcome back to the Take It Outside podcast, where we talk about all things outdoors and just getting outside where life happens. I'm your host, Sam Mackey, and always I have my co-host, Smokin' Jay Cutler. Our next guest is an Ontario native with multiple personalities. He's a professional outdoorsman and one hell of a shot. Please welcome Bud Fisher.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you coming on, Bud.
Multiple personalities, isn't that correct?
I was sitting there on my computer this morning, I'm like, it works.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The good shot's up for debate, probably.
What's that?
The good shot's probably up for debate.
We can settle that. I'd be happy to settle that. Yeah.
Well, that came because I was watching videos and you just skied this goose, and there's another video of a duck that was really far away and you just hammered him. That's pretty impressive.
If you have a good producer, you can do a lot in post.
we know his cameraman.
Brandon is good.
Yeah.
So, did you grow up in Ontario?
I did, yeah. Peterborough, Ontario. It's about an hour and a half northeast of Toronto. Mm-hmm. I guess a little bit more east than north. And I'm kind of most comfortable, if there's a cornfield between me and the city. And so that's where we grew up. We grew up in a bit of a neighborhood. I guess they're kind of like 2-acre lots, mm-hmm. outside of town. And I always envied my cousins because my mom was from a place called Maynooth, and it was the middle of nowhere. And they drive their snowmobiles to school when they're 13 years old. And,
that's cool.
Yeah, and they would, they were always hunting and fishing, and so I was always envious of that. And then when I was going into high school, my parents bought a property and built a house. It was on 100 acres, and that's where I really got into hunting for the first time. Prior to that, I'd hop on my bike. I'd cut the grass, get $5, hop on my bike, buy a Rapala and fish from a bridge,
mm-hmm.
And then once I was at the age where I bought my first bow and I could bow hunt, prior to being able to rifle hunt, which we could get into in Canada. It's brutal with the hunting and fishing for kids. You have to be 12 years old to get an apprentice license, and then you can't hunt on your own until you're like 14.
Really?
So I have an 8-year-old boy, Wesley, and I had to bring him down to Kentucky to shoot his first turkey in the spring because we can't legally do it back home. So it wasn't until a little bit later, I think 15 or 16, I bought a bow, and my parents had that property and started to really get into hunting then. So, and it was, wild west. We grew up hunting whitetails, in front of dogs. We'd set up a big U over 100-acre patch of bush and have guys every couple hundred yards and then send the dogs through. And you're slinging 30-06 with a lever action at deer on the run. And there's a story my uncle always tells, and he was dogging. He was running behind the dogs, and they came through a logging clearing to my grandpa. And here's boom, boom, boom. He just empties the clip, right? Comes running up out of breath and he goes, did you get him? My grandpa goes, well, if the earth's round like they say it is, I'll be back in an hour and a half. He was home. Didn't cut a hair, right? so then, my parents bought this property, and the first time that it was kind of fall and it was the opening of gun season, we were close enough to town that you had to use a shotgun and a slug. You weren't allowed to use a rifle.
Okay.
And so Robbie was like, my oldest brother, he was like, where are we going? So I'd found a rub in the middle of a kind of an overgrown field, and I was like, well, there's deer here, right? And I didn't know a thing. So I set Rob up on this little bit of a rise on a fence line, and he was in we call it hydro back home, but like a lineman jacket, that's got like the high vis stripes on it and everything. And it had burn holes in the pockets and everything. And I climbed up a tree. Didn't have a tree stand. I climbed up to the neck of a tree, brought a camo backpack. I had found a shed, so I was going to rattle, but I didn't have anything to rattle with. So naturally, I grabbed, a hickory handle, hammer. Had the two in the tree. I had one of those Primos estrus cans. You tip it over and it does the estrus call. And I had a grunt tube, and so sure enough, 45 minutes in, I spot a doe, and a doe takes a pee, and then 15 minutes later, a buck appears from my left, and he comes across, and he's walking kitty corner away from me, and he's grunting back. And this is like my first tree stand hunt, right? And like this big, mature, big-bodied Canadian deer steps out. It was just wild. And he was heading into the far corner, and I'm rummaging through my backpack, and I grab this bleat can and picks its head up and looks, and one more, it turned around and just ran, like right underneath my tree, right to my brother Rob, and I'm like, shoot him. I could see this like steam coming out of his nose. It was like drooling. It had been running all night, shoot him. It gets almost to the fence line, and he barrel rolls this thing. It gets up and runs at him again, and he shoots it again and drops it, and I basically fall out of the tree, come running over, and he goes, where'd that thing come from? He shot it at like 5 yards, and it got up and ran with him again. And he didn't see a deer all morning, and we're just standing there like scratching our heads going, this is awesome. That thing weighed like 215 pounds dressed, and I guess the rest is history now. But it was like a textbook hunt. And from where we are, it was just totally like this. Call it what you want, this God thing, this kind of moment, this kind of pivot moment of how that would really change at least my life. And
did you play hockey growing up too?
I did, yeah. So I was the runt in the family. I was the youngest.
How many brothers and sisters you have?
So I have 2 older brothers and an older sister. Okay. So there's 4 of us. I was the youngest, and so they threw me between the pipes. So I have pictures of me. I have pictures of me in a diaper and in a trapper and blocker and net, and so I played goalie all the way up. I played. So my older brother Mike, for your viewers who don't know, he played for the Ottawa Senators in the NHL for like 12 years, and then finished his career here in Nashville for the Predators in 17, and then pulled a Jordan, came back wearing the 4-5, and did one more stint in the playoffs. And that was 18, I think, and then he retired. He played junior hockey in Canada. I played college hockey in the States. So I played for Quinnipiac University out of Hamden, Connecticut, and I graduated there in 2009. Got married, and I played a little bit of semi-pro after, kind of like A-ball type thing. Cup of coffee in the East Coast League, and then got into a sales career. And it was in 2016 that we started Catchin Deers, and then the Rut Daniels thing followed after that. So, yeah.
How did Rut Daniels come to fruition?
Yeah, so it really started with Catchin Deers in 2016 being kind of like a joke between us, and it blew up and took off in a way that none of us were expecting. And we were making funny videos to promote the brand. You can't have a brand called Catchin Deers and take it too seriously. One of our slogans was take your hunting seriously and take yourself lightly. So we were doing things like the vegan hunter video where we were, I was, Bob Tully, 3rd generation vegan hunter. And I'll tell you, there ain't nothing like having a mature head of lettuce. 20 yards. Yeah. This whole thing. And so we had in this video, the walls like that hog and stuff, and it was like a bok choy with a drop tine, and like and like a pineapple that my grandfather had killed in Hawaii in '76, and stuff like that. So that was a video for Rage, one of our partners. And what our business model was, we were selling, and we still do. We sell apparel for hunters and fishermen, for outdoorsmen, but we really treated it like a media brand and made this entertaining content to promote the brand. And
did you do most of the writing?
Yeah, there was a group of us. There was, 3 of us pretty much that were doing, and then 4 that were doing the majority of the writing. And that was, it's one of the fun parts is when you're coming up and you're vetting out these ideas. And some of them are just ridiculous, and others, are ridiculous, and we roll with it. But so it's we have a lot of fun doing that. But one of the ones we did too was the most famous hunting story ever told. And I can take a crack at it, but it was basically like a 4-minute monologue name dropping a bunch of people, and it started out.
It's amazing.
It was the Herald night before the opener, and I was Kendall Jonesing to get into the Dr. Grant Woods, but my alarm clock was a John Dudley, and I slept through the morning sit. Well, I woke up right Tiflakoski that I'd missed the hunt, so I threw my Troy laundry I threw my my Mossy Oak in the Troy laundry and fired up the Bear Grylls. And so it goes on and on through that. And one of the parts is, out stepped Colorado buck, and he was a giant. I almost dropped a Ted Nugent in my Cam Hanes. And so it's like this 4-minute story. So long story short, with the Rut Daniels thing, we were kind of doing rock and roll and wanted to do country music, right? It was like, how can we do something that's entertaining, kind of goofy, a different style of humor that we can't get away with the brand, but we can promote the brand. We couldn't go and hire a Jay Cutler and Eva Shockey or somebody to promote the brand, because it was something completely different, and we wanted to have this really unique voice that wasn't available, in the marketplace. And so we just decided to create Rut Daniels. So one of my business partners had a wig that they'd got. It was one of their friends' mom's cancer wigs or something. Yeah. So we got this wig, and we're like, we'll use this. And then we went to Talese. It's this Canadian store that's like, it's a secondhand, it's a secondhand store. And so we go in, I find a fanny pack, throw that thing on, find some yellow glasses and throw them, and we're just like, this looks good. At one point I got a pair of rollerblades and threw them on.
I remember those.
It was maybe a little much. But we go over to Walmart and grab a pair of like tight jeans. Oh, one of my favorite stories is, so Rut wears this glove, and it's like a Bell bicycle glove, but it's fingerless, and it's only on one hand. People are like, how come you wear one glove? And the typical response is, I had arthritis from, tuning too many bows or whatever. But what really happened is I bought these gloves, and I went up to the counter, and they were like $3.75, but they were both left-handed. And I ripped them apart, and I went, there's 2 left. I'll give you $1.50 for this one. She's like, sure. She only had one glove. So it was like really this hodgepodge thing. And then, but when it all came together, it was like, it just worked out. Threw on a Pennsylvania. That's at least where it started, was with the Pennsylvania accent. Is kind of what we were going for. One of the guys threw out the name. We had Buck Hodges, and like all these different kind of, not Buck Hodges. I'm thinking of Duck, Devlin Hodges, but like Buck, Cooper and whatever else. And someone came up with Rut Daniels, and it was just like that's the one. And what was surprising about the thing is we came out of it with he was a pro at just a local shop, and he was kind of a know-it-all, but contradicted himself all the time. And we wanted to be a real caricature of the hunting experience, the crazy uncle that you have. And so when you go to the fair and they do like the Sharpie cartoon of you, and it's got the for me it'd have like the big chin and like whatever else, and so we want it to be like that, where people are like, that's exaggerated, but that's exactly what it's like too, right? And so we've really focused on kind of the relatability of it, and what was so surprising for us is like, okay, we're going to build like a legend in the outdoor space. This can go one of 2 ways, right? It can be like, oh, this guy is trying too hard, or but people got behind it so fast and was immediately Well,
I think it was so witty and well done, and I mean it was well written and well. I mean, you did a phenomenal job of doing the character as well.
Thank you.
So I mean, it was just.
Thank you. I think timing is so much too, because there hadn't been anything in that space for so long.
It had been so serious.
Yes.
Like it'd been just a serious genre, and like, all right, you're a professional hunter, you got to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And a lot of the hunting shows are mostly just commercials. You're just you're pushing product anyway.
Well, in the prior to social media, people would sit down and watch a really big deer be shot, because you don't get that experience. And now scrolling through Instagram, it's like giant. And so for a long time, it was almost like there was nothing new. And I think that the Rut Daniels and the Catchin Deers brand was just a totally different. And so we really benefited from the timing. And then I think the authenticity of it was, this is our experience and it may not be yours. And people really kind of bought into that. So we were very fortunate.
You guys made it fun, which I mean, that's everyone likes funny.
Yeah.
And selling funny is easy, but being funny is actually really, really hard to do.
Oh, I've had interviews at trade shows and stuff where you'll go and you'll be rut for 2 hours at the show, and you'll have a meet and greet and whatever. And I've had people come up and just with a mic and be like, "Be funny."
Yeah, go.
I think my response was, "That's not how it works." So
it's not an on-off switch here, guys.
Yeah,
I was on deployment. I forget what year it was, and one of my new guys walks in, and I look at his hat, and it says Catchin Deers. I'm like, what the fuck is that, Catchin Deers?
Yeah.
Like, I've never heard that term before. He goes, oh, it's this Olympian archer, and he was in the Olympics, and now, like, this is him, and he's a real funny guy, and he hunts a lot, but a little bit of an act, but, like, he got a gold medal or lost a medal or something of this nature.
Yeah, no gold medal.
So then I dig into it. I fire up the government computer there and watch all the Rut Daniels videos I could. Yeah. I'm like, man, this shit is hilarious.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Kaylin, her oldest, Sonny.
Yeah.
He's, I think, 5. I mean, obsessed with Rut Daniels. All he watches hunting shows and Rut Daniels. Will just sit at, YouTube and just watch them over and over.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
And I was talking to her. She's like, "Yeah, Sonny just won't get over this Rut Daniels guy." And I go, "He's watching Rut?" And she goes, "Yeah." "Do you know who it is?" I go, "Yeah, I know." She goes, "No, you don't." I go, "I promise you I do." His name's Bud, actually.
Yeah. No, it's been a wild ride, and some awesome hunts. Like, just it's been really fun for that, to go and do things that otherwise I wouldn't.
Sure.
I with my life, I've got to go and hunt lots, but I'm now doing things that I wouldn't otherwise do, like going to Newfoundland and going on a helicopter and moose hunt in Newfoundland.
How'd that come about?
So there's a television show in Canada that's on like cable television in the morning. It's also on Outdoor Channel here that's called Canada in the Rough, and they're the Beasley brothers that do that. They've been doing it for 15 years, and the show existed prior to that. I think they bought the naming convention. They bought the show years and years ago, and it's probably the biggest hunting. It's one of the biggest hunting shows in Canada. But Rob played with Keith, the oldest brother. Mike played with Paul, and then Kevin was my sister's age, and we've known them like my whole life. And so he reached out and said, Jeremy Mitchell runs Akaya Outfitters out of Newfoundland, and he wants to have you out. And I don't do that very often because it can go very poorly. There can be outfitters that are not real outfitters and they don't have the proper licensing, and that's all on me, right? So if somebody that I know and trust vouches for them, and so I was like, I'd love to go out there and do that. And so I connected with Jeremy. We became close friends right away, and it's an unbelievable hunt out there. So you land in Newfoundland, you drive a few hours, and Newfoundland, I had no idea how beautiful it is. Like I'd put it up against Vancouver Island in BC. Really? It's beautiful. And so you hop in a helicopter for about 30 minutes, and
They've got caribou there too, right?
Yeah,
woodland caribou.
Big caribou.
Yeah.
And we'd see them not every day, but we saw 3 or 4 groups of them.
Sure.
So you helicopter in, and they drop you at this little cabin and you're a week there at that cabin. You've got a little boat with like an 8 horsepower on it that you can boat to other sides of the lake, and then you're hiking for 8 to 10 miles a day, getting up high.
Really?
Yeah, up these big hills, and then you're just calling.
Glassing?
Yeah, glassing and calling.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're very responsive that time of year. It's different from elk hunting.
Yeah.
But it's that similar feel where, So you'd get up on top, you'd do this big, and then 2 miles away, you'd see a bull that starts to come, and it's like they'll come, like honestly, 2 miles on a rope, and it's a ton of fun. Yeah, and it's absolutely stunning out there. So we go into this little cabin. You've got a generator and stuff in this little cabin, and there's all these names on the wall that people have written. So the Canada and the Rough Boys had their name on the wall, and this particular cabin had George W. Bush and Colin Powell,
Really?
1993 written on it.
No
And
kidding.
and so it was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And it's like they're like, yeah, we have photos of them being here and everything, and so there's a little bit of history there.
For sure.
Yeah, it's just awesome.
You got a good one, didn't you?
So yeah, I've been 2 years in a row, and we've got I did rifle both times. So maybe next time I'll bring the bow out. But I've brought my older brother Rob both times that we've gone. We've both shot really nice moose. So.
What type of rifle? What caliber?
I use a 300 Winchester short is my big game that I use, and it's a Browning X-Bolt Pro, and so it's got the carbon fiber stock and the Cerakote barrel, and the thing's an absolute
300 short?
yeah, it's awesome.
How far away was he when you shot him?
The first one I shot was about 120, and the one last year was about 90.
Is that about 100 yards, about typical?
Yeah, Rob's was 200 that he shot. You're not ever really taking those. You're not shooting them at 500 yards or anything.
Because of the terrain and
the terrain.
and
Yeah,
the
you can
woods
get
and
into
everything?
position. They don't have very good eyesight. So if you've got the wind in your favor, it's almost like a black bear. If you've got the wind in your favor, you can let them come right to you.
Yeah.
And
That's a big target. At 90 yards.
Oh yeah. yeah, exactly.
It's a small bus.
Yeah.
Now, after you shot it, did you have horses? Did you have four-wheelers?
No,
or-
you have the helicopter, which is the best
hoisted
part.
out?
Yeah. So
The whole thing?
Well, it depends on where you kill it. So both of ours, or all 4 of ours that we killed, luckily died in good spots where you can process. So we quarter them out.
Okay.
You put them in game bags, and then he gets on his like inReach and sends the coordinates to the helicopter pilot, and he puts flags out. You have to carry it to a space the size of this room where he can get the helicopter down. And then you just put it there, and an hour later, you load it in, and then he takes it off, and you hike it back. So it's
And then do you get all the meat back to Canada then?
yeah. So it's in Canada and Newfoundland.
Oh,
but
sorry.
what
Yeah,
they
yeah.
do is they butcher it all there, and then they have these big freezer trucks that they'd use for groceries and stuff, and they take them to major city centers. So we'll drive 2 hours to the other side of Toronto, fill the back of your truck. We'll have 1,000 pounds of meat from two, and then take them back, and it's pretty reasonable. So it's a really good setup. You wait about a month, and then you drive 2 hours. You pick up 1,000 pounds of meat, and you're
home.
good to go.
One shot?
No.
Yeah.
No, this was the toughest dang moose that I've ever seen. I put one behind the shoulder. It was a pretty good shot. And I thought he was going down, and you could see blood coming out of its nose.
Yeah.
And it took off again. I hit it again, and then it ran probably 120 yards.
Really?
And when we found it, unfortunately, it was still alive, so I had to put another one in it. And when we looked, like I must have only hit one long.
Traditionally,
on the
they're
angle,
kind
but-
of soft though, aren't they? Don't
yeah,
they go down?
you can hit them and they'll just buckle.
Yeah,
But this
just
thing,
down.
I had 3 bullets like all close in behind the shoulder, and this thing was
Just took
tough
it.
as nails. Yeah, took it like a champ. But
I find that with elk too sometimes too. Like sometimes they just, down.
Yep.
And other times, you can smoke one and 400 yards later, they're still rolling.
yeah. So whatever happened, this thing was tough as nails. And of course, we did what we showed, the first few shots, and then finding the animal. But we try not to show any of that suffering. Kind of the unfortunate thing that can happen sometimes when you're hunting. But anyway, that was awesome. And then the helicopter pilot comes in and like right on a creek, just dropped. This guy had like 30,000 hours or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He'd been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
and was absolutely unbelievable with this chopper. And so it was a really fun hunt. And you can go at the start of the season, right when it first opens in September, and you can fish ocean run salmon, fly fish them in the rivers there, and then moose hunt like in the afternoons. Yeah, it's really
That's
cool.
pretty sick.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I'm gonna do this trip.
What's the biggest bear
You'll
you've
see
killed?
more. You'll see more than you did in Maine.
Gosh.
Yeah, it was slow, and I think we saw like 11 bulls in
Really?
4 or 5 days or something.
That's-
Yeah, and that was tough hunting.
Sure.
So yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw a couple big bears. I love bear hunting.
Yes, me too.
What's the biggest bear you've shot?
I shot 2 giants this past spring. It was the best bear hunting year I've ever had, and it's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, I love it.
So I had this bear up in Ontario. So Mike has some acreage in Ontario that is like prime bear country, and I'd had
You
this.
bait?
Yes,
Okay.
we bait there. It's thick, so picture like big timber,
Yep.
rolling hills, lots of rocks and cliffs, kind of like Kentucky
Yeah, I
where
was
we
gonna
hunt.
say- I was gonna
a
ask
little
that,
bit,
yeah.
a
Okay.
little bit like Kentucky there, and it hunts really big, right?
Yeah.
It's not like if you have 1,000 acres, it feels like it's much bigger. There's more surface area than that, but there's a lot of it's a lot of rock there because it's Canadian Shield, so there's nowhere for that water to drain. So there's a lot of swamps and cedar swamps and thick stuff, and you'll set up on the edge of that where they're bedded, and it can be 10 degrees cooler in the summer down in the bottom of those swamps. So if you're hunting in June, these black bears, they'll be down in there. So I'd had this bear for a minimum of 3 years, and I think closer to 5 years that I'd seen pictures of this big bear, and I'd convinced myself that I'd never kill this bear. In fact, I'd reached out to Donnie Vincent.
Yeah.
He and I were connected through some mutual friends.
He's
and
awesome.
And I told him, I was like, you're the kind of guy that would come and kill this bear.
Yeah, he'll spend 2 weeks there just
Yeah.
after this one bear.
Yeah, he'll sit all day every
Yeah,
day for
yeah.
2-3 weeks, and he'll end up killing it. And
Absolutely.
I'm like, I don't have the time to be able to go and do that. We're running the business, we're filming. I need to, not that I need to shoot the first thing that comes out, but I need to be successful consistently to entertain our audience,
Absolutely.
right? So I can't spend a month on one animal. So Brandon flew up and we checked the cameras, and I'd hunted 2 days prior to that, just kind of casually filming myself. And Brandon came up, and we run stealth cams, the cell cams up there.
They're great.
And they're awesome for that. And one of the spots I didn't have a cell cam on, and I pulled that camera when we got there, and that giant bear was on
Of course
it.
he was.
And he'd been there like 3 days in a row in daylight. And I was practicing with the recurve, and I was like, I'm finally going to kill a bear with this recurve. And I checked the camera, and this bear is 3 days in a row in daylight. And I like go down to the safe. I pull out the rifle. The 300 Winchester short. And we sat that night. We saw 11 bears that night.
Really?
We watched a boar breed a sow like 20 yards from us. And the last bear that came in, there was 5 bears, including 3 of them were boars at this bait, and they all just took off.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Here comes
he
Big Daddy.
is really good or really bad? And I think
Yeah.
it's really good. And so he just stepped out, and I was like, Brandon, I'm not going to mess around, because there was 2 barrels down there, and there was about less than 30 minutes, probably 20 minutes in legal light left.
Yeah.
I was like, if this guy's hungry, which he's coming in to eat,
Yeah.
he's just going to lay down, and I'm going to have to get down and stalk this thing because he's behind the barrel. So I'm like, you on him? He goes, yep. Just so I hit him twice, and luckily he came towards the trail.
Okay.
That there's a snowmobile trail that runs through there. In Ontario, it's almost like a road. Like they groom them with ski hill groomers and stuff, and so they like maintain them really, really well. And so this was obviously during the fall during the spring and not in the winter, but that trail is really well maintained. So we had the 4-wheeler basically right to it. Brandon and I, we're not huge guys, but we're reasonably sized. We couldn't move this bear.
Really?
Like couldn't move it at all.
Wow.
And so we get the 4-wheeler as close as we get, side by side, 1,000 cc side by side, as close as we can. We wrap around its chest. We wrap the winch cable, and we dragged it about 3 feet, and we snapped the winch cable.
What?
We're like, oh crap! Like we're done here. Like what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
And I was so glad that I'd made a good. I mean, it was like 60 or 70 yards, and this is like a 500 to 600 pound bear, right? So like. I should have made a good shot, and luckily I did. But I was like, if this thing ended up in the middle of the swamp, we'd be cooked.
Yeah.
We just have to quarter it
Quarter
all
it up
out, and we'd be all night in the bugs, and it's
mess.
awful, right? In June, first week in June, the bugs are insane. They'll pick you up and carry you away. So snapped the cable. I ended up getting the quad closer to where it is. I had to drive down the hill a little bit, I think, and then rewrap the broken cable, and we got it up onto the trail. Once it was on the trail, I put the winch out of the front and over the back and tilted the back.
Yeah.
And it took us from when we had it wrapped around the bear and trying the two of us to get it in using the winch. It took us like 15 minutes. So Brandon ended up on the part of the cab, like closest to the bed, and was jumping on it to try to get it to tilt so we could get this bear in the back. And I'll show you pictures, and maybe you can share a picture.
Yeah,
but
sure.
so this bear ended up being, I didn't get a weight on it, unfortunately. But it was 7'1". So the way that you quarter out these bears is, or the way that you measure them is you go claw to claw, and then you go nose to tail when it's skinned out and lying like a rug, and then you divide by 2. So the average of those two was 7'1". As a black bear is like the bear of a lifetime.
Tank.
And the head on this thing. And I haven't got it measured yet. And I'm not convinced that it has a Boone and Crockett skull, but it had stakes on the top of its head that were at least 2 inches thick. Like it was just a massive melon on it. It was unbelievable.
Is Boone and Crockett solely skull, or do they do it by the hide as well?
No, they don't do hide. It's only skull.
Is that only black bears, or what about brown bears?
Brown bears is the same way too, I believe.
Okay.
I believe, but it's only skull. A lot of like in Ontario, depending on where you go. So if you go out west, they'll talk about 7-foot bears.
Exactly.
If you go to Ontario, they'll talk about 300-pound bears, 500-pound bears. They don't use skull as much. And then in different places, like they'll use only the skull measurement. I shot a 21-inch black bear, right? But I don't exactly know what those measurements are, other than the quarter.
What are you gonna do with it?
So it's still in the freezer right now, and I think. So the first thing I did when I talked to my wife was like, I shot the giant, like the absolute giant. I shot it. She's like, congratulations, no taxidermy. I'm like, sounds good, doesn't work. So in respect to her wishes, I think I'm probably going to get a full mount done. So we'll see. It'll end up not in the house. It'll end up, in the hunt camp and not in the house. But yeah, that was the biggest bear that I've ever shot. And I couldn't believe that thing stepped out. And what was crazy too is that I was going to hunt from Monday to Friday with Brandon, and I had friends coming in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they were going to hunt as well. They couldn't get out early in that week. So the next bear to be shot was at the same stand, and it was on Wednesday night. The first night we hunted that stand again, my buddy had one, and he loves hunting. He hasn't been hunting as long as me, and he's never been black bear hunting. So his first bear comes out, he's like, let's take that one. Let's take that one. I'm like, you don't really want to take that one. I said, you can shoot whatever you want. I'm not going to stop you. If it's a sow with cubs, you can't shoot it. Other than that, you can shoot whatever you want. But that's not a big bear. He's like, well, how big is it? I'm like, it's like 120 pounds. He goes, no way. There's no way. Look at that thing.
They're so deceiving.
They are.
I was like, I promise you that thing's not over 120 pounds. He's like, okay, all right. Well, I'll wait. And another bear steps out. I'm like, that's your bear. Take him. He shot this bear, and we walked up on it, and I could not believe it. He had a massive melon on it. It weighed 370 pounds, and it was about 6.5 feet.
That's a big
6'7", and it was a stinking big bear. And then the next day, Rob shoots one, and he's like, yeah, it wasn't huge, but it was a nice bear. We walk up on it, and this thing weighs 325 pounds, and it was a 6'6" bear. And so in 3 days, we shot 3 bears that were over 325 pounds. And a lot of people that aren't into black bear hunting a lot will look at a bear and say, oh, that thing's 400 or 500 pounds, and it's not over 225. Right? Like they're very, very deceiving.
They are.
And so we were able to get they were able to bring a scale, and so they got theirs weighed. And so the one was 370 pounds. It was 6'6", and then mine was 7'1". The head looked like it was twice the size of it. And so we don't know what it was, but
it was a lot.
But it was a lot.
Yeah.
And so
Shot placement for bears.
Yeah.
A little far back.
Yes,
right?
a little different. Yeah.
So the first time I went bear hunting, the first bear I shot it in the head. And then
that'll work.
well, I was
This gentleman's not getting a full mount.
I was
He's a meat hunter.
2009,
Yeah.
and I've never been bear hunting before. And I found an outfitter up in Northern Virginia. I was living in Virginia Beach
Yeah.
at the time, and
They've got some big bears on the coast over there.
Oh yeah,
North
North
Carolina
Carolina,
has
South
big
Carolina,
bears, dude.
giants. Florida, you can't really as a
Yeah.
non-resident anyways. You can't kill them there, but there's giants there too.
and I told I had 3 days. I told him I want to sit sun up to sundown, and first time bear hunting. I'm not going to go back and eat lunch and chill out, and bring my lunch up there. And third day, don't see anything. I'm regretting not shooting this big, beautiful fox that I saw the day
Yeah.
before. Haven't even seen a deer. And then light gets real low, and I hear something over my back shoulder, and I look. I'm like, man, kind of looks like a hog and kind of sounds like one. And then I scrape the tree on accident, and he looks up at me. I'm like, oh, that's a bear. And I'm trying to turn around, and I couldn't figure it out. So I stood up, turned around, and now I'm straddling the tree backwards. My arm wrapped around it, my rifle right here. And now the sun's getting lower and lower, getting the last light. I'm like, fuck it. And the guy said, don't shoot him in the face. Right. He's like, the skull or is tough enough and it'll bounce off or something.
Well, they're very, very sloped, right?
Yeah.
Like you can,
And I'm at 308 with match rounds, and they were full metal jacket.
yeah.
And,
Like surely this will do it.
Yeah, so I'm like, man, I'm gonna test this. And so I get all set up and scrape the tree, and it looks up. I let him have it, and he collapses. I'm like, all right, perfect. Then it gets up, starts hitting the ground, hitting the tree, lays down again. I'm like, all right, he's dead. Then gets up and walks off like nothing happened. And I didn't shoot again. I just lost my shit. I just watched this bear leave. I'm like, then I bring my gun up, and he's already turned a corner. I'm like, oh man. I'm sitting there. Then I hear it.
Death moan?
Yeah. And I hear him like gargling blood.
Yeah.
And then, so I call the
Went
guy
to the face and just walked off.
So I I call the guide. I said, yeah, I just shot a bear. He walked off, and I heard the death moan. He goes, all right, I'll be right up there. So he drives up the mountain, and I'm like, yeah, he walked out this way, following blood. And he goes, oh, there he is. And he climbed up on this rock and died perfectly. It was awesome. And so then I see him looking, and he's like, well, I found the exit wound. It was like right here.
No.
And he's like, I don't see the entry. And I grab its head and turn it, and it's just barely off center right here. And I was up in the tree stand. It was down the hill below me. And so when it looked up at me, I drilled it right in between the eyes, and it went through his snout, down through its throat, hit its heart, and blew out its lung.
No.
Yeah.
And it still walked off. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Tough.
Yeah.
They're tough.
But so then I go bear hunting up in Maine, up in near Caribou. And I'm like really studying my shot placement. Nice bear walks out, broadside, and I get on him and I put it right behind his shoulder. I'm like, ugh. And then I move my crosshairs back, and it felt so weird shooting that far back.
Yeah, if you shot a lot of deer, it
Yeah.
feels really weird.
It's like the middle of the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, middle, absolutely. Yeah, a whitetail, you can blow out that shoulder and you'll hit him in the heart or hit him in the lungs, and not with a bear. There's a lot more kind of dead zone in there. Yeah.
Fur and stuff. It's just they're deceiving. I mean, we don't have a ton of them in Montana, but the ones that I've killed are like 250-ish.
Yeah.
I think we probably have some 300 and 400 pounders.
You have color phase in Montana. Though,
the first
which
one,
is
the first one
awesome.
I ever killed was
Beautiful.
like a almost red.
Okay,
picture
yeah.
of it. I mean, it was beautiful.
I shot a cinnamon in Alberta in like 2004 or something like that.
You guys had color phase ones up there.
Yeah, in Alberta. So out west we do, but we don't in Ontario. The only thing you can get in Ontario is a little bit of a chest patch. Which,
Like the white V or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Tuxedo.
Yep.
We've got a ton. There's a bunch of color phase. Like I think it's like 50-50 out.
Oh, really?
Out there.
Yeah.
You have that
that's
one
awesome.
that I saw a picture of on one of your cameras that's on the north side there, and it was a color phase one, and it was big. Like I think that's a 300-pound bear.
Yeah, I mean, but
know?
they're out there. It's just I don't have enough time to find them. You know what I mean?
Have you?
I wouldn't know where to start out there. Like I figured out now how to bait them and focusing on nutrition as much as attraction and finding the biggest thing is that these are smart animals. And I don't think people give them enough respect for how smart they are. Because if you're hunting like a 6-year-old whitetail, it's like that's a smart animal that you have to.
Yeah.
They eat, they crap, and they try not to die.
Yeah.
So like they're pretty good at all three.
Yeah.
And with bears though, like it can be 20, 25 years old.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. That's
Yeah.
a smart stinking animal.
Yeah.
We killed one 3 years ago. It was a nice bear. And I found, I was skinning it out and found birdshot in its hide.
Really?
So he'd gotten a little too close to somebody at some point and had been peppered.
Well, they're so aloof and just, I mean, I don't think they have no real plan. Like, you know, like deer, like a big mature deer, like they have their bedding area. You know, they've got the most, I mean, you can pattern them for the most part. These bears, if you can't bait them, I don't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, there is one thing that you can do early that would be successful for you in Montana, and it's as soon as they're out of the den, and the big mature boars are going to be the first ones out of the den. So that's the best time to kill a big bear. Is early in April, at least when I'm in BC and hunting out there. Early in April, if you find the first green up, the first thing that they're going to do out of the den is find green, because it's, well, they want high in starches and they want a lot of fiber.
Okay.
And they've got a plug in their gut.
Yep.
It's like tar.
Yep.
And so they're trying to get that out, and they're just trying to kickstart their system. So if you can walk, a lot of times they'll be on the side of logging trails and roads, and the grass is along the side. If you can get up in glass along roads, then that's how we kill them early when we're out west.
Are they mostly on like south facing slopes?
It would be, yeah, because that'd be the first green up. So you're going to find areas that aren't too deep in the valleys, obviously not up on the peaks, but you're going to find that first green up on the south facing slopes, and you should be able to come across some good ones doing that.
What do you guys use for bait?
So I've been through about everything. A lot of guys will use meat scraps from butchers, and that's effective. A lot of guys will use grains and corn and oils. And I found that I would have, and I used that for years, 3 or 4 years, I use a mix of barley, oats, and corn, and then have molasses, and I would put oil with different scent products in it, either a blueberry or like a
just a bunch
Northwoods
of crap.
Products. Yeah, Northwoods has a
just a potpourri of stuff.
Gold Rush that's awesome, and it'll attract them in, and they'll come in and they'll crush 30, 50 pounds of it, but then they won't be back for several days, and neither would you if you crush that. So what I started doing is getting 45-gallon drums of trail mix, and I'll drill like 1.5 to 2-inch holes in the side, and then chain both ends, and they'll have to roll that around and then pick up the pieces. So they can't eat as much at a time. They have to visit more frequently. And then because you've got fruits, you've got candies, you've got nuts, you've got high fat, high protein, the bears will keep coming back and use that as a primary food source, as opposed to something that when they're hungry, they'll come and they'll be a glutton and then leave. And that's been really effective. That's been frankly a game changer. Between that and proper placement, proper placement is so important when you're hunting the big hills, because you'll have these thermals come through and winds change directions. And these big bears, especially on a bait, they'll come in and they'll circle that whole thing. And if anything is off, they're not coming in.
Really?
So finding not only how the prevailing winds work, but how the winds work relative to the topography that you're hunting has been really, really critical for us, being able to not kill bears, but kill big bears. Yeah.
2 questions. I had a guide tell me one time, like, hey, the moment you see the bear, you got the bear beat for the most part. Because they'll circle, they'll sit back and they'll watch. They'll sit back 100 yards or 2 where you can't see them. But then, because I was waiting, I'm like, have wait for he comes in, gets broadside next to the barrel or what have you. He goes, no, take the first shot you feel comfortable with, in case they don't come in, because they'll linger, in the last line of cover or what have you.
Yeah.
And he's like, not only that, he's like, you don't worry about being slow with the gun or like anything like that, because once you see him, you have him beat.
Yeah, so in terms of eyesight, yes, but not in terms of scent.
Of course,
so it depends on the topography that you're hunting.
I was talking about eyesight.
I've hunted bears that you're 500-600 yards away in open country, and you get a wind shift and they're gone. And it's like, and I'm not going to shoot them at 500-600 yards. So you can certainly beat their eyes just about anywhere, but if you don't beat their nose, like, it's not going to happen.
And the oil, Do you ever, or I've also heard, hey, you can use bacon grease or some sort of oil because it gets on their paws
Yes.
and they walk off and
Yes.
attract more bears.
Yeah, I do that too. Yeah, so I'll take used fryer grease,
Yeah.
and then I'll put in Northwoods Bear Products Gold Rush. It's the most intense aroma I've used. There's a lot of great products, but that one seems to be for me the most pungent. And I will spray it in. I'll have misters that you'll spray the leaves and everything around, so it continues to, it's like almost like an air wick or something. And then I pour it. I just make a mess, and then it's all over them. And yeah.
Do you have you ever used anise?
Yes.
Like the black licorice?
Yes. Yeah.
Does the stuff you're talking about work better than that?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I think it's probably personality driven too, based on the bear. But yeah.
Have you been to Alaskan, done brown bear or Kodiak?
No, that's a bucket lister for sure. I'd love
Likewise.
to do it with a bow. My brother Mike, in probably 2003-ish, shot a grizzly in Alaska. I went with him and didn't hunt, but I fished with two other buddies there. So there was 4 of us that were there. Mike did the grizzly hunt, and so we saw grizzlies while we were float fishing, and that was an absolute game changer. Seeing grizzlies live.
Close.
Like we spooked one off of a bank and they went straight up this hill. Like they look like horses taking off running. Like absolutely blow your mind how powerful and fast they are. And then we went back, obviously 45 on the hit, but we walked that same hill later. It was all I could do to get up the thing.
Yeah.
Really?
And they were gone like a horse, like just absolutely unbelievable. Like you just don't stand a chance against something like that.
Did your brother use a rifle or a
He
bow?
did, yeah. Yeah, he used Weatherby 340. And that's quite the gun.
Well, so what are you guys doing with videos now?
We're doing so most recent change in terms of videos with Rut is we've done the hunting show for years, and we've transitioned into doing some fishing stuff as well. So right now we're filming ice fishing, and then we're filming fishing in the summer, and then we'll do spring black bears, turkeys. We'll do we're talking about doing an elk hunt in the fall. I'd like to do a mule deer hunt, and then whitetail and ducks. I mean, we could talk ducks all day too. That's one of my favorite things.
I love duck hunting.
Love duck hunting.
It's one of my favorite. I'm going to get into it more this next season.
I want to go in one of those deals that you went on, like it's down below and everyone just BS.
Oh, the pit blind?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I want to try that.
It's awesome. I did a snow goose hunt in the fall in October, and I love it because I could go and shoot a bear and enjoy myself. But if you can sit in a blind with I brought 2 of my cousins, one of my best friends, and my dad, and there was 5 of us there, 6 of us, Brandon. We had just an unbelievable time. But the one night we hunted with some Delta waterfowl guys, and we were like, this is the best duck and goose hunting you could ever have. We just lit them up. They were everywhere. And then the next morning we finished this hunt, and you're like, we've peaked. It doesn't get any better than this. We were with Canada Premier Hunts out in Alberta, out of Edmonton. And it was an incredible hunt. And then one of the guides comes back. His name's Cody. He comes back and he says, guys, I've got a smasher for the morning. I'm like, what's a smasher?
Yeah.
And he goes, 50 to 100,000 snows on this field.
What?
And I'm going,
What?
stop it. I'm like, how do you even know?
Yeah.
There's no way that you even know that. So I'm not sleeping that night, right? We wake up, we're setting up, and there's snows in the air, in the dark.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wild. We set up,
100,000.
and in an hour, we ran out of 18 boxes of ammo.
Yeah.
In an hour, we shot 220 geese, and they were still coming in. And I'll show you
clusters
videos.
of
It was let me put it this way:
Yeah.
the first group that came in, you're just picking any bird you want to, and they're all right in your face, so they all fall. The first group that comes in, I'm like this, just wide-eyed, and I'm spitting out blood. The first group that comes in, because it was just mayhem. I had blood landing in my mouth. There's birds all over, and he's like, reload, kill them more as fast as you can. You're reloading, and you've got cripples. You're ducking birds out of the air because they're falling. You're literally trying not to get hit with 10-pound cannonballs falling from 50 yards, and it was just absolute chaos. But we did. This was an incredible hunt. We did 2.5 days, so it was 5 hunts. We killed 590 birds in 2.5 days. And so it was just like
12
off
gauge?
the charts. What's that?
12 gauge?
12 gauge, yeah. Yeah.
Sore after that.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad, by the last one, my dad's 72 now. And I mean, shooting that much, we shot through 73 boxes of ammo in 2.5 days. And by the last day, my dad was didn't even have the gun in his hand. He was just looking up and watching and giggling. He was giggling like a schoolgirl. He was 72 years old. It was awesome.
What's up, guys? Sam Mackey here. I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Spartan Forge. Spartan Forge has no doubt made me a more effective and efficient hunter. Spartan Forge was founded by former U.S. Special Operations Intelligence Officer Bill Thompson, who took his 21 years of military experience fighting the global war on terror and applied his learnings to his true love, whitetail hunting. My favorite feature on the Spartan Forge app is the LiDAR for finding draws and funnels. It also has an AI deer movement prediction tool, so you know when and where to go. It has historical wind plots for selecting stand locations, and Cyber Scout for just about anything else I need to know. Spartan Forge, a veteran-owned and operated American mapping and scouting company. Use promo code OUTSIDER20 to save 20% on a premium membership to Spartan Forge. That's OUTSIDER20, OUTSIDER20.
Sam just got back from Sand Hill Crane.
Yeah, I went to West Texas and did that.
I've been wanting. Tell me about that.
I got a guy for you if you want to go out there.
Yeah.
It was best as. I mean, it was the best. See, first morning went out there and they could see extremely well, right? So had the lay down coffin blinds that closed,
Right.
In his trailer, he had tons of tumbleweed. We all got in, brushed it up, and then he was over there calling with his dog. And I mean, we're just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, boom! They all start flying. There was some salt something.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know, a mile to our west, and they all got up out of there and just started flying over to the fields and call them in, blasted them, and shit. It took us, I don't know, 30 minutes the first day.
Yeah.
It was limits 3. And then second day we went goose hunting, and we limited out again, a couple snows, but mainly Canadians, and then went Sand Hill Crane hunting again the third day, and the same thing. I mean, it took us an hour, hour and a half, right? And then went back and plugged prairie dogs all afternoon.
Did you?
At the ranch? Yeah, it was a great time.
Real.
They are delicious, Sand Hill Cranes.
I was going to say prairie dogs. Never had them. I've never had it, but ribeye of the sky is what they say.
And it was absolutely delicious.
I'd love to go and do that. That'd be
those things. I almost got smoked by one. You're saying birds falling.
Yes.
Yeah, my buddy John, he skied one, and I'm watching it as it's falling because his wings are moving. I'm like, okay.
It's like the guy that's walking towards you in the hallway, and you're both doing this. Yeah,
Those are big too.
Oh, they're huge.
Did the dogs wear the goggles?
No.
And everything for that? Have you seen those?
No, I have not.
Oh, so they make goggles now, and they're for fire dogs and for police dogs. But guys will put them on their dogs, sandhill crane hunting, because they've got that long beak, and they'll peck at them.
The dog was carrying one back, facing us, and the crane had his head up with his head over the back of the dog. So I mean, I could definitely see that.
Yeah. Well, there's dogs that'll run out to grab them, and they'll come up with their wings up like this, and the dog will just tuck its tail and get out of there.
It's a dinosaur.
Yeah.
They're huge. I mean, they sound like dinosaurs too.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. A bunch flew over my house right down here the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were down here.
Me neither. And Katie's like, what's that sound? Yeah. And he's been trying to get me to do that for a week. I'm like, I'm not going to try. I already sound like a fucking idiot.
I have no shame.
And Katie's like, what's that sound? I'm like, I mean, I don't know, but it sounds like a sandhill crane.
Yeah.
And then look up, and I'll be down. There's a ton of them.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't know they were here either.
Are you going to film at Mike's new duck spot?
Yes.
That's the plan?
Yeah. Another one I wasn't allowed to film at, so this one will be nice. Yeah. At least I think I can.
Yeah. I know they went down. Did they have any luck?
Yeah, it was a really weird year. They shot ducks, but they didn't have kind of
weather wasn't great.
Yeah, what they were hoping for. I mean, it's an unbelievable. I've seen the videos of that, as I'm sure you have, but just there's a ton of ducks. And my bucket list hunt. I mean, red stag is one. Kudu is another.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that you're gonna get an opportunity at that one. But my actual number one that I'm most excited to go do is Arkansas standing timber duck hunt. Because I'm a Canadian boy that hunts either fields or marshes, right?
Yeah.
So I'll watch, and you can't explain this to your audience. Like I can't explain what the feeling is, but I will watch, like with my kids on Saturday morning, ducks land into, like on TV, ducks land into flooded timber, and like my heart stops. Like I can't breathe. Like it's like I can't explain it. There's just something to it that is just unbelievable.
You've done it?
It's a blast. It's different because like, you know, you get in the timber and then you have like this opening that's, I mean, could be as small as this room. Or it could be
Is it
bigger.
flooded?
Yeah, it's all
Okay,
flooded.
so you're sitting up like on a little tree stand type thing?
You
or?
can, or you're just standing
Standing in
in the
the
water.
water in
Yeah.
your hip waders or chest
just
waders.
your waders.
Yeah.
I mean, they make those little chairs
Yep.
for dogs and stuff, but you got a little hook, put your stuff, backpack, or find a limb. But I mean, as soon as they commit,
Yeah.
I mean, it's over.
Yeah.
Like
Really?
there's nowhere to go. Like,
Yeah.
they're coming at you, and I'm like having like a bunch of greenheads come down into the timber.
That's sick.
Their wings are smacking the trees.
Oh, it's
and
fun.
they're like,
It's a lot of fun.
yeah.
And when they commit, they commit. So it's blast.
Do you have plans to go to New Zealand for a red stag?
No, I was thinking about it for a bit because one of my really good friends was going to move there. He's an emergency room physician, and he was like, I'm just going to take some time with the kids, and I'm going to work around. I think he has connections there, so he could get a visa. He's like, I might spend a year in New Zealand, take the kids out there. And I was like, well, I'm doing a red stag, and we're coming for 2 weeks. So bring the family. And so I don't know if that's going to happen now, but that would be when I would do that, is to make it so that we could make it a family.
They've got elk there too.
I did not know that.
I didn't know it either. We were down at the Four Seasons, and this guy named Charlie. I don't even know how we got talking about, but he was like, yeah, I just got back from New Zealand. He started showing me pictures. It's insane.
I know they had red stag and some sort of ram or sheep there.
Yeah, and they have different kinds of, and I'm not up on that stuff very much. Like there's people that would talk circles around me and that, but they have different bucks, different kind of bucks there, like different deer. They've got some really cool stuff that'd be fun to go and learn about that as much as shoot anything, right? But one thing that Brandon and I have been talking about is doing Hawaii.
Axis?
Yeah, because you can do axis, you can do turkeys there, you can fish. You
know
do
some
all
people
kinds of
there.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can line something up for you if you
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Introduce you to some folks.
Ton of axis out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're now paying. You have to be local, but they're paying locals to get rid of them.
Yeah.
That's how many there are.
They're overrun.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Ice fishing. Did you grow up ice fishing? Or?
No, not really. I didn't get into ice fishing until, gosh, maybe 10 years ago.
Have you ever speared? Or is that legal in Canada?
It is legal in certain parts and only certain species. So we don't spear where we are.
Yeah.
I have speared, but that was in Florida. I did.
Okay.
I went gigging for sheep's head.
Yeah.
And that was a ton of fun. You're going around in the boat, and there's hundreds of them, right? And so you're either bow fishing and shooting 1,000 times a night, or you've got this 12-foot spear that you're spearing them. And it was a blast. And they're good. They're really good to eat. Yeah, yeah.
Can you spear muskie? Is that one of the species?
No,
Okay.
you can't. Muskie is not only are they protected very well, there's also the culture around muskie that you don't kill them, and a lot of people won't catch them in the summer months because it's too hard on them, and there's very restricted handling practices where you have to be very, very careful with them because they're a really fragile fish, almost like a trout.
Okay.
You know, like if you gill a trout, you hold it up, and your guys will be like, "Whoa!" You know,
What are you doing?
It's the same thing. Guys will get pissed at you. It's the same thing with muskies, but I got into muskie fishing in the last probably 3 years.
That's my bucket list fish is a muskie.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Brandon came up with me. We've got good muskie fishing. We've got a lot of numbers. Right where my house is, like within 15 minutes of my house, I've got some really good waters that we're very successful at. But we'd have to go to, like a Lake Ontario or some big lakes to do. We could go down to like Detroit to get the really, really big. It's a different strain of muskie. It's the Great Lakes strain, and they're just absolute tanks.
Oh, wow.
Where I am, we get some nice fish. Like in one night, I caught a 45, a 47, and a 47 and a half.
Do you eat them?
No.
Okay.
No, you handle them carefully, and then you let them go. But
So it's just
It's
it's like the
Trophy
bass.
fish,
It's like the
yeah.
bass fishing down here.
yeah, very
Like
much
the
so.
largemouth
Where-
bass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take a picture, put them back.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. But it's the fish at 10,000 casts. Like it's a really, really tough fish.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not.
And then when you get one though, it's like a stinking dinosaur. Like they're an unbelievable fish to get. There's nothing like it. Nothing fights like it. I'll tell you, the first time that I caught a big muskie, like a 47-inch muskie, they would be 24 around like that, right? And you're talking, almost 4 feet.
Sure.
The first time I caught one, I was like, after my adrenaline, I was like shaking.
Yeah.
I was like, it feels like I just shot a giant whitetail.
Really?
Like catching a fish. Yeah.
Wow.
That's the closest thing that I can put it to. Yeah.
You ever go deep sea fishing at all?
I have. Not a lot.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I have fished for bonita in Florida. I want to do a Goliath grouper. I caught a 7-pound Goliath grouper that I thought was about 40 when I was reeling it in. There's something about them. They're so stinking strong. But done shark and a few things. But my favorite that you have to do if you haven't done it, like over any deep sea fishing, any of that, is sturgeon. So out in the Fraser River in BC, fishing for sturgeon.
Dinosaurs.
Absolute dinosaurs. I caught one that was about 4 feet long, and you're not allowed to pick them out of the water if they're less than like 60 inches or something. Like there's a rule, and they're talking about protected fish. Like you're tagging them and doing research on them when you catch them and everything.
Oh, really?
I caught one like this, and it had been caught like 5 times in the last like 15 years, and it was this big. And then we caught one that was 8.5 feet long. And they have no idea how old these fish are. They figure they're well over 100 years old. You'll catch fish that you're like, oh, this one hasn't been caught in 20 years.
Yeah.
And last time it was 4 inches smaller than it is now. They're just like, they are like dinosaurs.
That's crazy.
So I caught one. It was one of the biggest fish that they'd caught yet that year. And it was 8.5 feet to the fork. So it was about 9 feet long. I couldn't get my arms around it in the middle.
Serious?
Just how big it was. And it took me an hour and 45 minutes straight with like no harness, no anything to get this fish in. And when we got it in, it was a virgin. So it had never been tagged. It had never been caught. So we got to put a tag in it, like a radio tracker.
Did they give you the tags, or how's that work?
Yeah. So I fish with a fellow by the name of Kevin Estrada out of BC. He was a hockey player as well, and he was drafted to Carolina, was playing in their farm system, and was a fishing guide in the summer in Alaska, and he was in a plane crash that ended his hockey career.
Wow.
So now he broke his back, and he had a few things. So now he has what's called Sturgeon Slayers Outfitters, and they're a part of like a research team where he's got all the catalogs of all the fish. He's got the scanner that you scan it, you write down the mile marker of the river, how long the fish is, the health, all that stuff, and they track that over time. And so he's part of the research program with them.
Sturgeon Slayers, good name.
Yeah.
It is a good name.
Great name.
And they we caught 6 the first day, and Brandon and I got 7-footers, double headers.
Really?
And so he's there supposed to be filming. And of course he's got a license so that he can, but we both hook up at the same time. And Kevin's like, I got to drive the boat. Brandon, you're on that rod. Bud, you're on that rod. We're 30 minutes in, and the fish are wrapping the lines. So we're taking our rod and going under and over, and you got a 400-pound fish on, and you're trying to wrap.
What do you use for bait?
So you're running like, what is it, 100-pound or 200-pound line with fluorocarbon leaders. And he'll do 2 fluorocarbon leaders. He's like, you'd be surprised how many times you get a fish in and one of them snapped on rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
You'll have a 2-pound weight.
Okay.
And then you'll have more line, probably 4 feet of line, and a hook that's like the size of the palm of my hand. And then he'll use various baits, whether it's salmon roe or like a piece of salmon fillet or whatever live bait that kind of matches what's happening. Sure. And he'll have various baits, and he'll try one, and you'll have like Mega Live going where you can see the fish swimming, and he'll be like, big one behind your bait. Look at that. It's almost 10 feet because you've got the markers.
Yep.
And so it's like a video game. And then the rod just starts to go like this. And he's like, break the rod, break it. And you grab that thing, and as hard as you can, and you're just like, you're honestly trying, and the pole's like that big around, and you're just trying to snap the thing. And it just goes zzz, and he'll fire up the boat. It's like a big V8 with a jet on it, spin it around, chase the thing down the river.
Really?
Oh yeah, because it'll spool you. It'll just gone. So he's on the boat the whole time.
Trying to catch this thing.
You're communicating with him driving the boat. He's almost under us. All right. You drift it back and then you chase him, and it's wild.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
My friend's dad used to catch sturgeon in Northern California when I was a kid.
Okay,
And
yeah.
they had some rule, like it has to be in between like 60 and 64 inches to keep it or something.
So there's
of
like a
that
very
nature,
strict slot. Yeah.
And I go over to his house, ride my bike over there, and there's one just laying in the front lawn. No. And he'd go fishing all the time. Yeah. Taking pictures. He just got home from fishing. Took all sorts of pictures of us laying next to it and everything like that. But those things, they're crazy looking too.
They are. And they've got these things, they've got scoots on the side of them that are like they're like razor blades. They're these little like shards of bone almost all the way down the side, and they're sharp. They'll cut you on them. So they're like a dinosaur. They feel like a shark. They've got these like razors on the side of them. They're insane. And they've got the mouth that comes down on the bottom. So everybody thinks that they're just a bottom feeder, but they will chase and they'll eat salmon. Like they'll turn right upside down and suck in a salmon with their mouth like that. Yeah, they're crazy.
Huh. Interesting.
You turkey hunting Kentucky in this year?
Yeah, hopefully it goes better than last year.
Yeah.
You
It was a tough. No, I killed one in Tennessee, and I think I hunted here for 2 days. So the one day I got skunked, the one day I killed. Then we went to Kentucky, and I think we were 3 or 4 days there, and I killed one, and it was really, really tough. Yeah. Really tough. The one that I killed basically was super decoy shy and tried to skirt the decoy. And I was lucky I was running like TSS. I could take a poke at him.
Sure.
But I smashed this like nice big mature bird, walk up on it, and its legs were just as slick as can be. There wasn't a spur on it. Like just like a big old rope and spurless. It was absolutely hilarious.
I remember when it slowed down in Kentucky last year. I think I was texting Brandon, and he said he was over there with you.
Oh,
and
it was
he's like, "Yeah, we're having a tough go at it right now."
Yeah,
too.
yeah. You'd hear him on the roost and then nothing the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That's
They
just-
did that to us 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Too. I mean,
And I'll tell you, turkey hunting, like I enjoy anytime I'm in the woods doing anything. Like, I could go perch fishing and catch fish this big all day and have fun.
Yep.
But if turkey hunting is not good, I hate it more than anything in the world.
it's frustrating.
I get so mad because I maybe I have the assumption that when I hit the woods, I'm going to kill a turkey.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And when they're not doing it, I
Yeah.
get so mad. It's
Well,
like
it just pisses me
my
off that
nemesis.
you go into the woods and I mean they're firing off like it's on everywhere. You're surrounded by, and then sun comes up, hear some birds hit the ground, and then it's just
Turns off. It's a roller coaster.
Silent.
It's a roller coaster. Like there's no, at least when you go into whitetail hunting, you're like, I could sit here for the afternoon and not really see many deer, and you expect it. But with turkey hunting, they can start off so hot, and you're like, this is going to happen right now. And then they disappear. And I don't know how an animal can disappear like a turkey. They're just completely gone.
gone. And then I get frustrated. I'm like, if we're in blind, I'm like, all right. It's like 7:15. It's been 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, get down to the blind. Let's go. Let's go chase
Run
them.
and gun time. Yeah, we're getting behind the fan here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Luke's like, are you serious? I'm like, yes, we're going.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here.
Yeah.
You get buck fever for anything anymore?
Yeah. What do I get buck fever for? I haven't had it in a while.
Yeah.
I do after.
Yeah.
Like I'm convinced that buck fever is a lack of focus. And I'm convinced of that because I was an athlete before, and Jay, you can probably relate to this, but you get butterflies before, and you start to feel that before. And then once the game starts and your mind is solely focused on one thing, that goes away completely. And so I've convinced myself that when that deer steps out, if you're like, it's game time and I've got a job to do, then that can go away. And then you shoot it, and then you get excited, and that's when I start to after.
Yeah.
Now, is that 100%?
I lose
accurate?
my shit.
Do you?
Yeah.
See, I did for a long time, and I think part of it for me too is that in the world that I'm in filming and stuff, it's not just about me shooting that animal or enjoying. I'm focused on, I've got a job to do, I've got different things, and this is how I'm going to. And so it becomes more about executing than it does about enjoying that moment.
It changes the dynamics.
It changes the
100%.
dynamic, and it changes the dynamic, and it's kind of, I almost hesitate to say this, but it changes how hunting feels, and it changes the enjoyment of hunting.
It's a work pressure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As much as it is kind of that buck fever thing. So if I was to just not film anymore and just go hunting on my own and have a giant step out, I'm sure it would be back to the same old thing. But I'm communicating with my cameraman. I'm remembering things that we want to do with it. And I'm like, okay, I just need to get this arrow right here. And that, I don't know, maybe that's helped me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I could definitely see it. You turn it into a task, like, hey, and you have so many other things that need to happen at this exact moment where you really don't have much time to get nervous.
Yeah.
Right? 'Cause
Yeah.
he has to do his job. You have to do your job. There's a lot of shit going on. And
There was, we were talking about moose earlier, and I have a good buddy of mine, Adrian from home. He's like one of my best friends. And, Brandon, I think, couldn't come on that trip. And so Adrian, I was like, you're running camera. Rob is hunting with me, and so the three of us, and then basically like 4 best friends now with our guide that we're spending a week in this cabin. In this, I spotted this bull moose coming at literally 2 miles away, and it was funny. We were promoting Bushnell in this video, and I pull up the Bushnells. I'm like, 2 miles, and he's a good looking bull. He's a good looking bull. Look at that. He's got a little something broken off on his left side, right? And like just being dumb, right? And I shoot this. So this bull comes in, and I shoot it, and we go down, and one of the tines on the left side was broken off. And I'm seeing this broken off tine from 2 miles to a pair of like 10 by 42 Bushnells.
Those Bushnells.
Yeah, dialed
I
in.
assume you just rolled with it.
Yeah. So funny story about the buck fever, but this bull comes in, we lose him for 15 minutes, whatever, and he steps out kind of on the backside
what
of
was
this
the
hill.
timeline from sight to shot?
Probably like 45 minutes.
Okay,
And long
not
enough
too bad.
that we would have moved on. Like if we didn't spot him at 2 miles, we would have been at the next spot calling, and he would have been still coming in.
Yeah.
So, and you'll only have these swamps, and you'll see him cut through that swamp, and it'll be 10 minutes, and then he'll be cutting through another one because it's all timber,
45.
right?
I mean, that's pretty quick.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
too
well,
bad.
he was definitely coming. It was just kind of a stroll
Sure.
for a couple miles,
Yep.
right? So anyway, he steps out, and my cameraman, my buddy, is beside me, and I can just hear him. And I've got the gun ready, right? And I'm glassing them, and I'm deciding whether or not this is the bull that I'm going to shoot, and how are we going to pull it off, and where am I going to be, and how am I going to do this where he can pan to me and not just be on the, and make it easy for him. And I give him a tap on the side, and I just go like this. He looks at me, he goes, okay. He pulls it up, and he had like full on buck fever filming this. So it's something we've never let it go, right? He's like, man, I was nervous. Like I had a job to do. He's like, this big hunt, weeks, we got one shot to get. And if I don't get it, we don't have an episode. He's like, I was nervous. Anyway, so that was hilarious on the buck fever side.
I'm fine shooting, but I had the same thing because I filmed Samantha and I filmed the boys this year. And I mean, I was the same way.
Yeah.
Like, she had this buck come in. I mean, this is September, I think, early on, and he comes in, and I mean, he just tees us up, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, as soon as he turns, like, let him have it.
Yeah.
And so I'm filming behind him. I'm not listening to myself, and she turns around and she goes, "Are you okay?"
Were you just back there panting?
I'm shaking. I'm like, please turn. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Let me calm down. And then I had the boys, and there was a youth hunt, and I was filming them, and I went back and looked at it, and I mean, it's just like the screen is just all over the place. But I mean, I wanted them to kill so bad. I mean, I was like, you want this to happen?
Oh yeah.
But it's it's different whenever you're behind somebody filming for them, and you want it to happen.
You have no control.
No.
I found that
Yeah.
it was the same thing with like when I was playing hockey. I wouldn't. I mean, I'd be nervous before a game. You start the game and you're in the zone. But watching Mike for Nashville in like the 17 Stanley Cup Finals, you're just sweating bullets and you're nervous. And there's nothing you can do except for hyperventilate.
Yep.
So it's the same thing. Yeah.
Watching the boys play, I get more nervous watching the boys play and like the lead up to the games than I think I did myself playing. I mean, it's just like whenever it came to football this first time this year, tackle, I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
Before the game, nervous wreck.
It's so much fun though.
It
My
is.
my boy's 8. He's a goalie now too, and I didn't really want him to be a goalie.
Sure.
I didn't really care what sport he played, but I wanted him to play a sport, a team sport, because I wanted him to learn the life lessons, and I wanted him to learn how to lose and how to all the rest of it.
Yep.
So, but he was playing ball hockey in the summer, like just kind of a rec league ball hockey, and they put him between the pipe swing game, and he was a different kid. Like just
Really?
boom, he was focused, and he was into it, and I could tell that he had a mind for the game and little things that I didn't think an 8-year-old would pick up on that he was telling me about. And it's so much fun to watch him, watch him go through that. And then now he's playing, rep team hockey as a goalie, and it's awesome because I can get in and teach him a thing or two, tell him a thing or two, do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
I don't have the hips for it anymore.
How old is he?
He's 8.
All right.
Yeah, it's an awesome age. It's so much fun. They were in a tournament last weekend, won the whole tournament.
Really?
They had this little mini Stanley Cup, and go out for
awesome.
dinner after, and just loving it.
So I was up fishing in Devil's Lake up in North Dakota.
Okay.
And this is a northerner thing. At the bar there on the ice, they were serving shots, but they put a minnow in it.
Really?
Have you ever? Is
No,
that
I've
is
never
that a
done
Canadian
that.
thing?
No, I've never done
maybe
that.
it's just a crazy North Dakota thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they just put I think maybe it was in Minnesota, I forget, but it's in Devil's Lake, and they just put a little live minnow in there.
Yeah,
And you
that's
just-
awesome.
Yeah, let her eat.
Get your,
Seems like a waste to me. You could you could throw that on an 1/8-ounce jig
that's a
and go
walleye when
walleye
you look
fishing.
Get your omegas in, I guess.
Yeah.
So you're at the convention this week?
Yeah. Gonna go on Thursday. Rut might make an appearance there.
Okay.
And then after that, heading home, and then I'm doing Ducks Unlimited has
wow.
fishing for ducks.
Okay.
It's in Minnesota, and it's the biggest Ducks Unlimited event in the world. There's like a couple thousand people on the ice out there, and it's a fundraiser for Ducks Unlimited. So Rut's make an appearance at that
Awesome.
on the 21st and 2nd in Minnesota, and then a few more little things into turkey season, and then we're just going. I'll be down here for bass too as the water starts to warm.
Where do you
Be down
bass fish at around here?
My brother's got a pond that is a great pond with some big fish. Luke Bryan has a nice pond that every once in a while I sneak into when he's not looking. And
If you run out of spots, my original pond is stocked. There's walleye, crappie, catfish.
Did you
where's
put small?
that at?
In Kentucky?
Oh,
Did you put smallmouth in there?
No, they need running water. There's bass in there.
there's walleye in there.
Yeah,
Really?
and some big crappie and some big bluegill.
That'd be
I want to
awesome,
fish
yeah.
the
But
new
if-
new lake. See what's in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that new lake too. The original pond is like at the original lodge.
Yeah.
We stocked that one, which is
Yeah.
like 10, 12 acres.
Okay.
And then the other lodge has a 40-acre lake. that
Okay.
we don't not sure.
I've never fished it really. Well, you get some good electronics in there. You'll find out right away.
Yep.
Yeah.
But if you guys run out of spots, you're more than welcome to dump in those.
I can bring the Starfire over for you.
There you go. What's that?
Do it.
That's that's Rut's boat. I picked up. So I was doing it a bit with Luke Bryan, and he goes, "Oh, I just picked up a new boat from your buddy there, Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson is Bassmaster Angler of the Year.
Okay.
Spends a bunch of time down here, but he's from my hometown.
Okay.
And I run into him at the hockey rink and stuff, and he's like, "I just picked up, his ZR 290, whatever else, right? This like, with 5 Garmin's on it and everything." And I was like, "Oh, I just picked up a bass boat too." He goes, "Well, what'd you get, bud?" I said, "I got a 1985 Skeeter Starfire 150. And he goes, "I can't tell if you're joking." I said, I was wearing the wig and the glasses. I was like, "Do I look like I'm joking, Luke?"
Deadly serious.
Yeah. So now I've got some Humminbird, Mega Live 2 on it and everything. And now the electronics are worth 4 times the boat.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But like just this, I wanted to have just an absolute classic.
Sure.
And so it's got on the side, it's got the Starfire 150 logo. It's a Skeeter. And it's got that like vintage where the S fades. It's got the S like 4 times. So it's the butter that it's the boat that won't stutter. It's the only boat. No, what is it? It's the boat that won't sputter. It's the only boat with a stutter. It's a Starfire 150.
So you drive down?
No, for fishing I do because I have so much gear and I have
how
the
far is
boat.
that drive?
14.
Oh, not awful.
So
bad as I
I
thought it
don't
was
do
gonna
it
be.
very often.
Yeah,
Like if I'm coming down for 2 weeks or
Sure.
whatever, then I will. But like for trips like this, I'll fly. Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, bud.
Well, then we're getting you in Montana too. So
Yes, I'm excited
Yeah,
for that. I'm excited for that.
we'll figure that out in about a month.
Yeah,
but,
I'd love to shoot one with a bow. I've killed one elk before. It was with a rifle.
Yeah.
And I'd
We
love
get-
to get right up in its face and hear him screaming. I haven't really had that experience.
we
so,
can do it. We can make that
Yeah,
happen.
that'd be awesome.
I was saying earlier, the elk I shot last year, it still doesn't feel real. Like it was the greatest hunting experience of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely awesome. And then hunting with him, he just all gas.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, just
Not a patient one. Though.
No, I mean, just make sure your wind's good.
Yeah.
But like during the rut, you can mess with them a little bit. I mean, you can kind of test their patience as long as the wind's fine.
Yeah.
They'll let you get away with some things that you probably shouldn't be able to get away with.
Yeah.
And if we bust them up, we'll just go after another.
Go
crew.
find more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love hunting like that. That's one of the reasons I like duck hunting so much. And if you're spotting stock
Yep.
for mule deer or something, it's like, blew that one. Let's go find another
Yeah, find
one.
another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got enough herds that we can get
Yeah.
into them.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you for having me. I really
Appreciate you coming on. I
Good
really
chatting
do.
with you guys.
Yeah, it was great. You taught me a lot. I appreciate it.